Don't try to be perfect, just try to make progress. That's where the change begins. You see, some people spend their whole lives trying to be perfect. They wait for the right plan, the right moment, the right mood, and while they're waiting, time moves on, the opportunity slips by. And before they know it, they're looking back wondering where all the years went. Why? Because they thought they had to be perfect before they could begin, but they never began. Let me tell you something, progress is better than perfection. That's the key, that's the mindset that changes everything. Progress builds your confidence. Progress makes you feel alive again. Progress makes you proud. And here's what's interesting, perfection, it does the opposite. It puts pressure on you. It makes you anxious. It makes you feel like you're never quite good enough even when you're doing your best. Now think about this: if you're waiting to be perfect before you act, you might wait forever, but if you choose to make progress, even just a little, things start to shift. You begin to feel it, you begin to build something. That's how people change, not overnight, not all at once, but step by step. A little progress each day adds up to something meaningful. This video is about helping you make that shift from trying to be perfect to making real progress. It's not complicated, it's not dramatic, it's not hype, it's just the truth, and if you understand it and apply it, your life will start to move in the right direction, guaranteed. So if you've been stuck or waiting or putting things off, this might be the turning point. Stay with me and let's get into it, because once you truly understand that progress is better than perfection, everything in your life starts to work a little better, and that's worth your time. Number 1. Progress builds momentum. Perfection breaks it. Progress builds momentum. That's the truth that most people overlook. When you decide to take action, even in a small way, you change the direction of your life, not in theory, not someday, right now. The problem is we've been taught to wait, taught to overthink, taught to chase perfection before we ever move. That way of living, it's the fastest way to stay stuck. The harder it becomes to move forward. That's why progress, no matter how small, is far more powerful than perfection ever will be. Most people don't understand this. They think they need to get everything lined up perfectly before they take action. They believe they have to feel 100% ready. They need the right equipment, the right plan, the right time, the right mood, and while they're sitting there waiting for all the stars to align, someone else is moving, someone else is growing, someone else is building momentum day by day. You ever notice how some people seem to gain speed in life while others can't even seem to start? It's not luck, it's not talent, it's that they stopped chasing perfection and started making progress. Here's what's real: the longer you wait to begin, the more resistance you feel. Your brain starts giving you reasons why now isn't the right time. You start doubting your ability. You start convincing yourself that if it can't be excellent, it's not worth doing. That's not high standards, that's fear. Fear of looking like a beginner, fear of messing up, fear of judgment. And you know what fear does? It freezes your life. It keeps your future locked in the same patterns. You say you want to escape, you think you're being cautious, but really you're just holding yourself back. Now think about this: when was the last time you felt good because you did something perfectly? Maybe once or twice, but when was the last time you felt good because you finally made progress on something you've been avoiding? That feeling is different. That feeling is power. That's confidence. That's momentum. You don't need to be perfect to feel proud. You need to take a step. One small step can shift your entire mood. It makes the next decision easier, the next task lighter, and before you know it, you're in motion. When you're in motion, your mind clears up. You stop sitting in self-doubt. You stop beating yourself up for not doing more. You stop feeling like a spectator in your own life. You start showing up. You start building something real, and it doesn't need to be flashy, it just needs to be forward progress. Even the quiet kind has a way of waking up your belief in yourself. Now let's talk about momentum. Real momentum is built in silence. It's built when no one's watching, when the camera's off, when the room is quiet. It's built when you make the decision to keep going even when the results aren't showing yet. That's what most people don't understand. They want results now, they want validation now, but progress doesn't always give you applause. What it gives you is energy, and if you keep moving, that energy starts to build into something bigger than you expected. It's the people who chase perfection think they're playing the long game, but in reality they're just wasting time. They spend weeks fine-tuning, polishing, adjusting, only to still feel like it's not ready. Meanwhile, The person who started with something small has already made 5 improvements, gained some traction and learned from there. Mistakes. Perfection creates pressure. It makes everything feel heavier than it needs to be. It turns simple actions into overwhelming tasks. Progress, on the other hand, creates rhythm. It builds a system where one wind fuels the next, and that rhythm is what gets you results. There's something else to remember. The world doesn't reward perfection, it rewards consistency. It rewards showing up. It rewards the person who keeps doing the work even when it's not ideal, even when the timing isn't perfect, even when it's inconvenient. The person who keeps showing up is the one who eventually breaks through, not because they were flawless but because they were consistent. You want to change your life? Then stop trying to get everything right on the first try. Stop trying to impress everybody. Start by making one honest improvement each day. Focus on doing, not overthinking. Focus on effort, not image. Don't try to skip the process. Live in it, learn from it. Progress isn't about being fast, it's about being steady. The most dangerous belief is thinking you're behind just because you're not perfect. You are not behind. You are just one decision away from getting in motion, and once you get in motion, you're no longer the same person you were yesterday. That alone is progress. That alone is growth. That's how you begin to separate yourself from who you used to be. And here's the best part: progress is addictive. Once you feel it, once you see your effort making a difference, you don't want to stop. You start setting new standards for yourself. You start carrying yourself differently. You start speaking with more certainty, not because everything is perfect but because you've seen what happens when you just keep moving forward. So many people are walking around tired, not because they're working too hard but because they're stuck in their head. They're trying to be perfect before they start. That's exhausting. It drains your energy. It keeps your mind spinning in circles. But the moment you take action, that weight lifts. You start to breathe again. You start to feel clear, and clarity brings peace. That's what progress does. It brings peace because you're no longer living in hesitation. You're living in decision. If there's one thing to take seriously right now, it's this: don't waste your life trying to be perfect. That's not where your breakthrough lives. It lives in the small, steady, honest progress you make when no one is clapping, when no one is praising, when it's just you, your decision, and your discipline. Momentum doesn't come from waiting, it comes from starting. It comes from doing. And if you're willing to trade the idea of perfection for the reality of progress, you'll be amazed at what you can create, how strong you can become, and how far you can go without ever needing to be perfect. If you're ready for your life to change, this is where it begins. Not with more planning, not with waiting for the perfect setup. It begins with movement. It begins with progress, because progress builds momentum, and momentum changes everything. Number 2, progress gets results. Perfection gets regret. There's a truth most people ignore until it's too late. Progress gets results, but perfection that leads to regret, and not the kind you forget about the next day. The kind of regret that stays with you, follows you, makes you wonder what could have happened if you had just started sooner. You know, there are people out there who are just as capable as you, just as smart, just as ambitious, but the reason they're ahead is because they acted, they made moves when things weren't ideal. They got started when they felt nervous. They didn't let perfection stop them, and now they're seeing real results, not because they were flawless, but because they were brave enough to begin. Most people think waiting is the smart choice. They tell themselves, once I know more, once I'm better, once it all makes sense, then I'll start. But that waiting turns into weeks, then months, then years, and one day they realize the window they thought would be open forever has closed. That's the kind of regret that can tear you apart from the inside, not because you didn't get a second chance, but because deep down you knew you had a chance and didn't take it. That's not a good feeling to live with. Progress works differently. When you focus on making progress, you feel alive, you see movement, you feel growth. Even if it's slow, it's happening. It gives you something to hold on to, something to build on. Results start to appear, not all at once, but enough to show you that you're heading in the right direction. That keeps you going, that builds discipline, and most importantly, it builds belief. You start to believe that your work matters, your decisions count, and your actions are creating something real. When you chase perfection, you stay stuck in your head. You think about everything that could go wrong. You try to plan every step, and in the process you lose momentum before you even start. That Pressure to get it all right makes everything feel bigger than it is. What should have taken a few hours takes days. What could have been done by now is still sitting untouched. That's the cost of perfection. It makes simple things feel complicated. And possible things feel far away. Now think about what happens when you choose progress. Instead, you begin with what you have. You do your best with where you are. You take action and you learn as you go. Each move teaches you something. Each effort shows you what works and what doesn't. You gain experience, you gain understanding, you gain control, and that control, that's what leads to real results. Not because you had it all figured out from the beginning, but because you figured it out by doing. You want to grow your business? Start where you are. You want to improve your health? Start with what you can do today. You want to develop your mind? Pick up a book, take notes, apply one idea. Stop waiting to become the perfect version of yourself before you take action. You'll never be that version until you start building it, and the only way to build it is by doing the work. Right now, results come from action, not delay. So many people get caught up in the idea that if it isn't big it doesn't count, but that's not true. Results are built from small daily efforts that compound over time. You don't need to change everything overnight. You just need to do something different today, something better, something intentional, and once you do that, you're on the path to progress. That's what separates the people who dream from the people who achieve. The ones who achieve are willing to act before they feel ready. The world is filled with people who had big ideas but never acted on them. You don't want to be one of them, because it's not the missed opportunity that hurts the most. It's knowing you had every chance to create something meaningful and chose not to. That's a hard truth to carry, but here's the good news: you don't have to carry that. You can start making progress now. Right now you can take back control, create motion, and start seeing results. You're not behind, you're not too late. You're not missing something. You just need to stop measuring everything against an impossible standard. Progress doesn't need perfection, it needs purpose, it needs action, it needs a decision. Once you make that decision, everything starts to shift. Your energy changes, your attitude shifts, you stop overthinking and start building. That's where the results live, not in waiting, not in worrying, but in working. If you're watching this right now, this is your moment, this is your time to decide. You can keep chasing perfect and feel disappointed, or you can chase progress and see results. The people who win are the ones who choose progress again and again, not because it's easy but because it works, and it works every single time. You want results? Then stop hiding behind planning and start moving. Stop analyzing and start doing, because the more you move, the more you learn. The more you learn, the more you grow, and the more you grow, the closer you get to everything you've been working for. Regret is a heavy burden. Progress is a powerful force. One weighs you down, the other lifts you up. You get to choose which one becomes your story. Don't wait until you're ready. Don't wait until you're confident. Don't wait until it's perfect. Start now. Start real. Start raw. Just start, because the results you want are already possible. They're just waiting on your progress. Number 3, progress builds confidence. Perfection builds doubt. Confidence doesn't come from thinking about being confident. It doesn't come from reading about it, hoping for it, or waiting for it to show up. It comes from progress. It comes from doing, from trying, from getting a result, even a small one, and realizing that you're capable. Most people think confidence is something you either have or you don't. But that's not true. Confidence is something you earn. You earn it every time you follow through, every time you keep a promise to yourself, every time you take a step you are scared to take. Now here's where perfection ruins everything. Perfection tells you not to start until you're sure, not to act until it's safe, not to speak up until everything sounds just right. So you hold back, you wait, you rehearse in your head over and over again, and the more you wait, the more unsure you feel. The more you second guess, the more your mind plays tricks on you. You start feeling smaller, not stronger. That's what perfection does. It drains your confidence before you even take the first step, and that's the trap most people fall into without even realizing it. Real growth starts when you decide that action matters more than image, that movement matters more than being impressive, that showing up imperfect is still better than hiding until everything looks flawless. You grow into confidence by doing the thing you're unsure about and proving to yourself that you can handle it. That's where strength comes from, not the appearance of having it all together, but the evidence that you're willing to try to Learn and to improve along the way. Progress gives you that evidence. It's not about winning every time, it's not about being the best, it's about being honest with yourself and saying I'm willing to show up today, I'm willing to get better, I'm willing to keep moving even if it's slow. That kind of progress builds a foundation, it gives you something solid to stand on, not a fantasy, not a dream, but real proof that you've done something meaningful. And when you know you've done the work, you carry yourself differently, you speak with more clarity, you trust yourself a little more. That's the kind of confidence no one can give you, and no one can take away. People love watching videos that make them feel like they're not alone, they want to feel understood, they want to feel like someone gets what they're going through. And if you've ever felt like you weren't good enough to begin, like you needed to get everything right on the first try, like you were falling behind while everyone else was getting ahead, then you're not alone, but you do have a choice. You can choose to keep chasing this perfect version of yourself that only exists in your mind, or you can start becoming someone real, someone in motion, someone growing. That's what your future needs from you, not perfection, just movement, just progress. And don't make the mistake of thinking confidence shows up once you've achieved something huge. It actually starts when you do something small consistently. You eat one good meal instead of junk, you wake up early and use your time right, you ask the question you've been avoiding, you finish the project you started. These are the things that shift how you see yourself. These are the steps that turn maybe I can into I know I can. Perfection has a way of making people feel like they're constantly behind, like they're always trying to catch up to some invisible finish line, and it's exhausting. You end up feeling like no matter what you do, it's never enough. But when you shift your focus to progress, you stop measuring yourself against impossible standards, you start measuring yourself against who you were yesterday. And when you see that you're growing, you gain confidence, not because someone said you're great, but because you have proof that you're becoming stronger. There's something powerful about being able to look at your life and say, I'm not where I want to be yet, but I'm closer than I was. That sentence right there, that mindset is what builds resilience. It's what keeps people going. It's what separates those who quit from those who succeed. Not the need to be perfect, but the ability to stay consistent and recognize the value of their effort. This is why progress matters more than perfection, because perfection asks for everything and gives you nothing, but progress meets you where you are and helps you grow one honest effort at a time. That kind of growth gives you confidence. You can feel confidence that sticks, confidence that doesn't disappear the moment something goes wrong. The reason this kind of content performs so well is because it speaks to the part of people that's tired of pretending, tired of acting like they have it all figured out. People crave truth. They want to be reminded that it's okay to be human, to struggle, to improve slowly. So when you speak with clarity and honesty and you show them that they're not broken, they're just stuck trying to be perfect, you give them a path forward. And when people feel like they can actually do something with what you're saying, they stay, they watch, they share. That's what the algorithm loves: real connection, real value, and real impact. Confidence isn't built in silence, it's built when you say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to take action anyway. It's built when you show up, when you try, when you keep going. You're not behind, you're just beginning. And the moment you shift your attention to progress, you'll start to feel that fire come back, that belief that maybe, just maybe, you can actually do this. And the truth is you can, because progress builds confidence every single time. Number 4, progress is real. Perfection is just an illusion. Most people spend years chasing something that doesn't even exist. They waste energy, time, and emotion trying to be perfect. And what's worse is that they believe perfection is the only way to feel valuable. But what they don't realize is perfection is just an illusion. It's a story we've been sold, a story that tells you if everything isn't flawless, it doesn't count. If the outcome isn't flawless, it's a failure. And that belief ruins people. It paralyzes them. It makes them question themselves when the truth is they're doing better than they think. They're just measuring with the wrong standard. Perfection is a trap. You can't touch it, you can't hold it, you can't even define it. It keeps moving. The moment you think you're close, you get one thing right and suddenly the bar gets higher. You clean up one area of your life and suddenly you see 10 other things that don't feel good enough. That's what the illusion of perfection does. It tells you you're never enough even on your best days. It convinces you that until everything is Ideal you're falling short, and that mindset doesn't lead to greatness, it leads to burnout and anxiety and low self-worth. But progress is real. It's something you can see, it's something you can feel when you wake up earlier than you did last week. That's progress when you say no to something that pulls you off track. That's progress when you choose to take the harder road, because it helps you grow. That's progress. It's honest, it's simple, it's something you can measure against your own life, not someone else's highlight reel, not someone else's timeline, just you getting better in real time. This is where the algorithm comes into play too. People don't stick around for fake energy or surface level advice anymore. They want something they can relate to. They want something that sounds like their own thoughts, only clearer, more focused and more hopeful. They want to hear that it's okay to not be perfect. They want to hear that they can still move forward even with flaws, even with fear. So when you give them something that feels real, they don't click away. They lean in, they feel heard, and that kind of emotional engagement is what platforms reward, because it keeps people connected to content that matters. Think about how many times you've stopped yourself from doing something just because you felt it wasn't going to be good enough. You held back your opinion. You delayed the project, you avoided the gym, you skipped the opportunity, not because you didn't care but because you thought you had to do it perfectly or not at all. That's the illusion I'm talking about. It's strong, it's sneaky, and it's costing people progress every single day. The truth is, people who succeed long-term don't do things perfectly. They do things consistently. They fail, they mess up, they get it wrong sometimes, but they show up again, they try again, they tweak, they learn, and that steady effort is what creates the results everyone else sees. But those results didn't come from perfection, they came from reality, from small steps, from daily choices that felt ordinary in the moment but added up to something extraordinary over time. That's what makes progress so powerful. It honors your humanity. It doesn't demand you to be superhuman, it just asks you to try to be willing to move. And the more you focus on what's real, what's possible, what's doable today, the stronger your progress becomes. And when you make progress your goals, something shifts inside you. You start showing up with less pressure, you start feeling less anxious, you stop waiting to be perfect and start enjoying the process of getting better. If you're watching this right now and you've been carrying the weight of perfection on your shoulders, I want to say this as clearly as possible. You don't need to be perfect to start. You don't need to be perfect to matter. You don't need to be perfect to win. What you need is to commit to progress every day in every area. Progress doesn't lie, it gives you a track record, it gives you a sense of direction, it gives you reasons to believe in yourself again. It's easy to get distracted by the illusion. Social media highlights fast success stories, people showing only their best moments, but remember, all that is filtered, all that is presented. What you're doing in private when no one's watching is where the real wins happen. And if you're moving forward even by a little, you're ahead, you're not behind, you're not failing, you're building something solid, something true. One of the greatest forms of peace is knowing you're no longer pretending, that you don't have to wear a mask of perfection to feel worthy, that you're allowed to be honest about where you are and still move forward. That's where confidence grows. That's where real self-respect builds, and that's when life starts to feel fulfilling again, not because everything is perfect, but because you're making progress on things that matter to you. This kind of video, this kind of message, it works not because it shouts or sells hype, but because it tells the truth in a world full of performance. And that truth, that progress is real and perfection is a lie, is what sets people free. It gives them permission to try, to grow, to begin again, and that beginning could change everything. So if you've been stuck, overwhelmed, tired of the pressure to always get it right, now you know what to do. You drop the illusion, you focus on what's real, and you give yourself a shot. A real one, not someday, not next week, right now, because real change doesn't start with being perfect, it starts with being honest, and that honesty followed by action is what progress is made of, and that's something worth chasing. Number 5. Progress is within reach. Perfection is always out of reach. You don't need to wait until everything's in place before you make a move. The belief that you can only act once you've figured everything out is one of the biggest lies holding people back most of the time. What keeps people stuck isn't lack of talent or opportunity, it's the idea that they have to wait until they're fully prepared, fully skilled, fully polished. But here's the truth, progress is always within reach. You can start exactly where you Are with what you have right now. Perfection on the other hand keeps moving. It always stays out of reach, and the longer you chase it the more drained and disconnected you start to feel. There are people out there who have waited 5 years just to start something they could have begun 5 minutes ago. They didn't need more tools, they didn't need better timing, they needed to believe that progress counts, that effort counts, that starting messy is better than never starting at all. But the illusion of perfection made them wait, and the more they waited the more overwhelmed they became. Eventually some of them gave up, not because they couldn't do it but because they believed they had to do it without making a mistake. And that's the mistake. When you treat progress like the goal instead of perfection, something shifts inside you. You no longer feel like you're behind. You stop focusing on what you don't have and start working with what you do. That's when momentum starts building. You're no longer trying to impress anyone, you're just trying to grow, and growth doesn't require approval, it requires action, it requires discipline, it requires a mindset that says today is enough to begin. This is what the audience loves. They don't want to be preached to, they don't want to be told they're broken, they want to be reminded that they're not stuck forever, they want to feel seen. So when you deliver content that shows them they can begin without waiting for perfect circumstances, they stay with you, they feel connected, they feel encouraged, and they watch longer, not because you're hyping them up but because you're giving them something practical and real. People want real solutions to real problems, and most of the time their problem isn't the lack of a big opportunity, it's that they haven't allowed themselves to take the next step. They're afraid they'll fail, afraid they'll be judged, afraid that if they don't get it right the first time it won't count. But here's the thing, the only failure is standing still. If you move forward even slowly, you're already ahead of most people, and if you keep moving you'll eventually figure it out. Not because you were perfect from the start but because you kept showing up. You see, when you wait for perfection you convince yourself that every small effort isn't worth it. You brush off the value of starting early. You say things like, I'll do it when I'm more prepared, or I'll wait for the right time. But there's never a perfect time, there's only time that's either used or wasted, and every time you postpone you trade progress for pressure, and that pressure builds. Eventually it becomes so heavy that starting feels impossible. But the solution isn't to keep waiting, it's to take one step right now. No excuses, no hesitation. Just one real honest step. Progress isn't glamorous, it's not loud. Sometimes it's uncomfortable, but it's always worth it. You wake up knowing you did something meaningful. You look at yourself in the mirror and know you made a move that got you closer. That kind of feeling isn't something perfection can give you, because perfection only lives in your imagination. Progress shows up in your habits, your energy, your confidence. It's real. It's visible, and it's yours to create. This is the type of message that triggers something deep in people. It doesn't ask them to be someone they're not, it asks them to be real about where they are and take full ownership of where they want to go. When people feel understood they stay, they replay, they share, and that kind of engagement tells the algorithm this video is worth it, not because it's flash but because it's true, and truth always sticks. So if you've been holding off waiting for things to line up, just know this: you already have what you need to begin. You're not missing anything. You don't need more permission, you don't need a perfect plan, you need courage, you need the willingness to be seen. Trying that alone can change everything, because when you choose progress over perfection you free yourself from the pressure that's been holding you back. You give yourself a real chance, not a someday fantasy but a today decision. The more you move forward the more you realize how much power you've had all along. You'll see that most of the barriers weren't real, they were built in your mind, and once you break through one you start breaking through more. That's what progress does. It opens you up, it builds you, it reminds you that growth is always possible, always. So don't wait for the stars to align, don't wait for the perfect words or the perfect timing or the perfect version of yourself. Make today count, use what you've got, move forward as you are, because progress is within reach, always has been, always will be, and it's ready for you right now. Number 6. Progress is growth. Perf tie-in is pressure. If you want real growth, strong lasting personal growth, you've got to stop chasing perfection and start building progress. The difference between those two mindsets can completely shape how your life turns out. One of them keeps you grounded, consistent and focused, the other keeps You anxious, overwhelmed and burnt out. When you choose progress you move forward, you evolve, you adapt, you feel good about getting better. But when you chase perfection you pressure yourself into believing that nothing short of flawless is acceptable, and that kind of pressure doesn't help you grow. It crushes your drive, it pulls the energy out of your ambition, you stop enjoying the process, and before long you stop altogether. Real growth happens when you start where you are and keep improving over time, not all at once but little by little. Every day you do something that may makes you a bit stronger, a bit smarter, a bit more focused. That's what leads to actual change, and the audience loves hearing this. People want to be reminded that they don't have to have it all figured out to make a move. They want to be reminded that they're allowed to be a work in progress. That message sticks with people, it connects, and that connection, especially when it's delivered in a grounded, honest voice, is exactly what keeps people watching. So many people start their goals with good intentions, they get excited, they feel inspired, they start setting big expectations, and for a while they feel powerful, but then perfection creeps in. It starts whispering that things aren't good enough, that the work is too messy, that the progress is too slow, and instead of pushing through they pause. Then that pause turns into hesitation, that hesitation turns into guilt, and before they know it they've stopped, not because they didn't care, but because perfection told them they weren't doing it right. The truth is, progress allows you to breathe, it gives you permission to be human. It says, look, today won't be perfect, but it can be better than yesterday. That's how you grow, not by getting it all right, but by refusing to quit when it goes wrong. Progress teaches resilience, perfection teaches fear, and when your day is built around fear, fear of not being good enough, fear of being judged, fear of failing, you carry a mental weight that keeps you from moving forward. Here's something else to understand: perfection might seem noble on the outside. People say, I just have high standards, but often that's not high standards, that's fear in disguise. Fear of being seen, starting small, fear of not being the best right away, and that fear wears people down. It stops them from developing the discipline to keep going. Discipline is built through repetition, through trial and error, through daily effort, and you don't get that when you're stuck in your head waiting for the right time to do everything flawlessly. This is why people are drawn to content that tells the truth about how growth actually works. They don't want another fake success story, they want to see behind the curtain. They want to hear the part no one talks about, the part where progress is slow and messy but real. That's the kind of content that gets watched all the way through. It makes people feel like they're not alone, like they're not the only one struggling with self-doubt, and when people feel understood they stay, they listen, and they share it with others who need it too. Growth doesn't always look like big wins or flashy results. Sometimes growth looks like choosing to show up when you don't feel motivated. It looks like doing the hard thing instead of the easy thing. It looks like choosing the long game instead of the shortcut. These moments don't always feel exciting, but they matter. They build something in you, they create inner strength, they shape your character, and over time that inner strength shows up in everything you do. Now I want you to think about how progress changes your relationship with your own goals. When you're focused on progress, you begin to enjoy the journey. You start celebrating small wins instead of criticizing yourself for not being further ahead. That shift in mindset changes your energy, it changes how you carry yourself. You become more consistent, you feel more capable. You begin to realize that success isn't about making perfect moves, it's about making meaningful ones. Perfection always pushes you to rush, it wants everything now. It tells you that if results don't show up quickly, something's wrong. That mindset leads to burnout, but progress allows you to pace yourself. It reminds you that long-term results require long-term thinking, and this patience builds emotional strength. You stop being reactive, you start becoming strategic. You make better decisions because you're not panicking, you're focused. That's what sustainable growth feels like. Here's what people remember: not who looked the best, not who talked the loud, but who is real, who spoke from experience, who delivered the message that actually helped them take a step forward. That's how you stand out. Not with perfection, but with authenticity. Progress speaks louder than performance. When people see you walking the walk, it gives them courage to do the same, and courage that's contagious. So if you're caught between waiting for things to be perfect and starting now, start now. You don't need to do everything today, you just need to do something today. Make one decision that brings you closer to the person you want to become, even if it's small, even if it's quiet, even if no one sees it but you, because progress is growth, and growth creates a life you're proud of, not overnight but step by step. That's how it's done. Number 7. Progress rewards you, perfection punishes you. If you've been pushing yourself hard, doing your best, staying up late, waking up early, and giving everything you've got but still feel like you're not good enough, then maybe you're chasing the wrong thing. Maybe what you need isn't more pressure. Maybe what you need is progress, the kind of progress that builds you up, the kind that rewards you, that gives you strength and momentum. See, progress rewards you with clarity. It shows you your results, even when they're small, and those results, when they come from effort and discipline, bring satisfaction. They give you a sense of control. You know you've earned something real. But when you aim for perfection, you don't get rewards, you get punishments, because no matter what you do, it never feels like enough. This is what most people struggle with. They're doing the work, they're trying, they're improving, but because they don't hit some imaginary perfect standard, they beat themselves up. They feel like failures when they should be proud. That kind of pressure isn't healthy. It doesn't push you, it drains you, it robs you of the joy that comes from knowing you're making honest effort. You start doubting your ability, you start questioning your goals, and before long you lose the motivation to even try. That's not how winners are built, that's how good people burn out. The reason so many people stay stuck is because they only count the big moments, the big victories, the perfect outcomes. But what if those moments never come? What happens then? You've got to start counting your progress, the effort, the improvement, the consistency. That's what deserves your attention, that's what keeps you moving. Because when you shift your focus from needing to be perfect to being proud of your effort, you change your relationship with yourself. You start building trust, you start gaining momentum, and the rewards become internal. They don't depend on someone clapping for you or giving you a compliment. You feel the reward in your character, you feel it in your self-worth. And here's where the algorithm comes in, the content people engage with the most. The videos that keep people watching are the ones that speak to their real experience. They want something that doesn't just motivate them for 5 minutes but helps them think differently. They want something that gives them permission to be human and still move forward. That's why when you create something rooted in truth, something that says you're not broken, you're just chasing the wrong target, people stay. They watch the whole video, they comment, they share, because you didn't just hype them up, you helped them come back to themselves. And that's powerful. You don't have to do things flawlessly to earn peace of mind. You earn peace by doing what you said you do, by sticking to the process, by staying in motion when it's uncomfortable. When you commit to progress, you give yourself something to feel proud of every day, even if no one notices, even if it's small. It still matters, because you know deep down you're not lying to yourself, you're not making excuses, you're not waiting around, you're doing the work. That's how people grow into strength, quietly consist. Now think about this. When was the last time you actually gave yourself credit? When was the last time you looked in the mirror and acknowledged how far you've come? Most people don't do that. They don't take the time to recognize their wins unless they're massive, and that's the mistake. The big wins don't come unless you celebrate the small ones. You have to honor your process. You have to see yourself as someone who's growing, not someone who's failing just because it's not perfect yet. Perfection is a setup. It sets you up to feel behind. Even when you're ahead, it makes you feel like you're losing. Even when you're improving, it tricks your mind into thinking that all your effort isn't worth it just because it doesn't look amazing on the outside. But progress is honest. It says, hey, I'm better than I was last week. I showed up when I didn't feel like it. I stayed focused. I got something done. That's a win, and that win should be celebrated because you earned it. You see, the people who last, the ones who keep climbing, they're not obsessed with perfection. They're focused on getting better, on learning, on adjusting, on building habits. They aren't afraid of making mistakes, they're afraid of staying the same. That mindset keeps them sharp and keeps them grounded, and most importantly, it keeps them moving. You've got to be the kind of person who rewards yourself for effort, not just outcomes. Because when effort becomes the reward, you stop waiting for someone else to tell you you're doing a good job. You already know, you feel it, you live it, and that confidence becomes your fuel. It's What helps you push through the hard days? It's what helps you stay patient during slow seasons. It's what helps you stay focused when things get chaotic. So if you're tired of never feeling good enough, if you're always chasing something that feels just out of reach, maybe it's time to shift your mindset. Maybe it's time to stop punishing yourself for not being perfect and start rewarding yourself for being consistent. For showing up, for trying again. That's what will build your discipline. That's what will build your self-respect, and in the long run that's what will build your life. This kind of message connects deeply because it gives people hope without sugarcoating anything. It's real. It's direct. It reminds them that they're not alone in how they feel, but they don't have to stay stuck. And when you deliver that kind of message with honesty and conviction, the audience doesn't just watch, they believe, they trust, and they come back for more. You're not falling behind, you're just being too hard on yourself. Let that go. Trade the punishment of perfection for the reward of progress. That's where the growth lives. That's where the peace lives, and that's where you'll find the version of yourself you've been working so hard to become. Number 8. Progress moves you forward. Perfection keeps you waiting. Progress is the thing that moves your life forward. It's what creates real change, not because you suddenly figure everything out, but because you refuse to stay where you are. The moment you choose to move even just a little, you've already separated yourself from the crowd. See, most people are stuck not because they aren't talented, not because they don't want something better. They're stuck because they're waiting for perfect conditions. They're convinced they need everything lined up before they begin, so they stay still. They stay waiting, they stay planning. But life doesn't reward waiting. Life rewards movement. It rewards momentum. This is where people get it wrong. They think if they wait a little longer, learn a little more, prepare a little better, then somehow things will get easier. But it never works like that. Progress makes things easier because it builds your strength, it sharpens your mind, it teaches you by doing. But perfection wants you to wait, it wants you to keep thinking instead of acting. It convinces you that movement without certainty is risky, but you know what's even riskier? Staying still. Because when you wait too long, you lose energy, you lose confidence, and eventually you start losing belief in yourself altogether. When you decide to make progress your goal, you take your power back. You stop waiting for someone else to tell you the time is right. You stop needing to feel 100% ready. You stop measuring your day based on whether everything went right, and you start measuring it by whether you kept going. That shift changes everything. Suddenly you don't need a perfect plan, you need a next step, and that next step creates momentum, and momentum is where growth lives, because when you're moving forward, even if it's slow, you're learning, you're stretching, you're alive. And that's what the audience craves right now. They want to feel like they can finally move again. They want to feel like they're not trapped by overthinking or perfectionism or fear. And when they watch a video that speaks directly to that, they stay, they lean in, because it's personal, it's emotional, it's grounded. And YouTube's algorithm knows when people are engaged. It knows when a viewer isn't just clicking, they're watching all the way through, they're pausing, rewinding, sharing, commenting. That kind of genuine connection gets pushed out to more people. That's how reach grows. Now back to momentum. There's a difference between feeling stuck and being stuck. Feeling stuck is emotional, it's mental, it's that voice in your head telling you it's not worth starting. Being stuck is when you've actually stopped moving, and the scary part is most people feel stuck for so long they eventually make it real. But the way out is progress, movement, action. You make one decision today that you've been avoiding. You complete one task that's been sitting there unfinished. That one small action, it breaks the pattern, it shifts your brain out of doubt and into doing. And the moment that happens, the game changes, because now you're in motion, and motion breeds more motion. You begin to feel capable again. Not because the problems disappeared, but because you're not waiting around for them to fix themselves. You've taken responsibility. You've reminded yourself that you still have control, that feeling of control, of ownership, of self-respect. That's what momentum brings. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's consistent, and consistency beats intensity every single time. One of the most important lessons you'll ever learn is this: the longer you wait to act, the harder it becomes to act. Procrastination isn't just lost time. It's a loss of belief. Every time you delay, you're training your mind to doubt. You're telling yourself that discomfort is something to avoid instead of something to push through, and that's the real cost Of perfection, it doesn't just slow you down, it rewires how you see yourself, it shrinks your courage, it weakens your identity, and the longer you live in that mindset, the more you start to accept less from yourself and from your life. But when you embrace progress, even with all its imperfections, you start to rebuild who you are. You prove to yourself that you don't need ideal conditions to grow. You grow because you're committed, because you care, because you want more from your life than just talking about it, and that commitment adds up. One good day turns into two. 1 week of effort becomes a month of results. Before long, your entire life looks different, not because everything changed overnight, but because you changed your pace and stuck with it. And here's the thing most people forget: progress isn't about doing everything fast, it's about not stopping. If you fall behind, you don't quit. If you mess up, you don't disappear, you stay with it, you adjust, you move forward. That's the difference between people who make something of their lives and people who spend their whole life wishing. It's not luck, it's not talent, it's follow through, it's consistency, it's moments. So if you've been waiting for permission to move, here it is. You don't need anyone's approval, you don't need to have it all figured out, you just need to take one honest step forward, one small act of courage that says, I'm ready to stop waiting. And when you do that, when you stop letting perfection keep you frozen, you unlock something powerful inside you. And once that door opens, you'll never want to go back. This is how lives change. Not through massive breakthroughs, but through steady motion. That's what progress does. It gives you back your belief, it builds your inner strength, it reminds you that you're not stuck unless you choose to be. So get moving, keep going, and trust that momentum will do the rest. Number 9. Progress makes you proud, perfection makes you anxious. There's something powerful about doing your best even when no one is watching, about showing up for yourself, that quiet internal win. That's what makes you proud, not because everything's perfect, but because you kept going. You stayed the course, you stayed disciplined, and that feeling, that's something perfection can never give you. Perfection makes you anxious, it pushes you to keep finding flaws. You fix one thing and then you find another, and it becomes this endless loop where nothing feels good enough. You keep chasing this image in your head, thinking one day you'll finally get there and feel happy, but that day never comes, not because you aren't trying, but because the goalpost keeps moving. Pride doesn't come from perfect outcomes, it comes from progress, from knowing that even when things got tough, you didn't let yourself off the hook, you didn't throw in the towel when things didn't go your way, you stuck with it. And that kind of consistency builds self-respect, it creates a deep inner peace. You lay your head down at night knowing you used the day well, not because it was easy, but because you gave it your honest effort. When you understand this, you stop obsessing over how things look and start paying attention to how things feel. You begin to recognize that fulfillment isn't found in flawless execution, it's found in knowing you're improving, that every choice matters, that even the small wins count. And when you measure your life that way, everything shifts. Your expectations change, you stop looking for external validation and start living for internal progress. This is what people connect to when they watch, not hype, not a highlight reel. They connect to truth. They connect to real stories, they connect to the feeling of being seen, and when a video touches that part of them, they don't click away, they watch to the end because they want more of that clarity, that grounding, that sense that they're not alone in their struggle. That's what the YouTube algorithm recognizes. It rewards watch time, it pushes content that keeps people engaged, and real, emotionally connected messages always outperform shallow motivational fluff. The more honest the message, the longer people stay, and the longer they stay, the more they remember. You have to understand that perfection is not your friend, it doesn't build you up, it tears you down slowly, piece by piece. It tells you're not doing enough, no matter how hard you work. It convinces you that if you're not excelling in every area of life, you're falling short, and that pressure, it steals your peace. It makes you second guess everything, and worst of all, it makes you blind to your progress. You could be getting better every day, but if you're chasing perfection, you won't see it, you won't feel proud, you'll just feel behind. But when you start focusing on the steps you've taken, the effort you've given, the things you've overcome, something new happens. You start to appreciate your journey. You start recognizing that progress might be slow, but it's real, it's yours, and no one can take that from you. That's where pride lives, in your quiet effort, in your Daily discipline in your choice to get back up even when life pushed you down. The amazing thing about this mindset is that it doesn't just change how you feel, it changes what you do. You start approaching each day differently. You stop trying to do on things and start doing a few things while you stop waiting for motivation and start depending on structure. And because your goal isn't to be perfect anymore, you don't fall apart when things don't go as planned. You stay steady, you stay focused, you build momentum that actually lasts. And it's funny, once you stop trying to be perfect, you actually start becoming more productive. You take more action, you take more risks, you learn faster, you're more creative. Why? Because the fear is gone. You're not living under pressure, you're living with purpose, you're showing up with clarity, and that energy, it's attractive. People feel it, they trust it, they want to hear more from someone who's walking the walk. Not pretending to have it all figured out, but showing that it's possible to grow even when life is messy. That's why it's so important to stop letting perfection run your life. If you keep waiting for the perfect moment, you'll never move. If you keep aiming for perfect results, you'll always feel disappointed. But if you keep aiming for progress, you'll feel proud. Every step forward becomes a win. Every effort becomes fuel, and that fuel creates momentum. And when you build momentum, you stop relying on luck or motivation. You become reliable, disciplined, and that's what builds the kind of life people admire, not because it looks perfect on the outside, but because it feels strong on the inside. So today, don't ask yourself, was it perfect? Ask, did I make progress? That question changes everything. It takes the pressure off and puts the power back in your hands. It reminds you that you are in charge of your effort, you are in charge of your decisions, and you can be proud of yourself even when no one else notices, because you notice, and that's what matters most. This message resonates because it gives people something they don't get enough of: permission to be human, permission to grow, permission to mess up and still win. And that kind of message doesn't just get watched, it gets remembered, it gets rewatched, it gets shared, because it brings people back to what actually matters. And in a world full of noise, that kind of clarity is what people are hungry for. So don't wait to feel proud, don't wait until everything looks good. Feel proud now, because you're trying, you're improving, you're growing, and progress, no matter how small, is always something to be proud of. Number 10. Progress changes lives. Perfection changes nothing. There's something remarkable that happens when a person stops chasing perfection and starts committing to progress. Their life begins to change in ways that go deeper than just better habits or stronger discipline. What changes first is the mindset. When that shifts, everything else follows. Progress has the power to transform not just your schedule or your goals or your productivity. It can change your life, not in theory but in reality. It's not because things suddenly become easier, it's because your decisions start coming from a new place. You stop trying to impress, you stop waiting for the ideal time, you stop overthinking every move, and you begin living with clarity. You begin doing what matters instead of wasting energy on what doesn't. Most people are stuck because they've been trained to believe that change only counts when it's big, fast, and flawless. But that mindset is what keeps people stuck in cycles. It convinces them that if they can't do it all at once, they shouldn't start at all. That belief causes people to give up before they begin, to quit early, to hesitate every time they think about trying something new, and every time they hesitate, the weight of inaction gets heavier. They think they're standing still, but really they're falling further into fear and self-doubt. You can't live like that for long without it affecting your energy, your relationships, and your direction. But the moment you choose progress, everything starts to open up again. Progress is a decision that says, I'm going to do something today that makes tomorrow better. That kind of decision compounds, it builds strength, one small action at a time, and those small actions, they build character, they create identity. You go from someone who talks about gold to someone who lives them. You go from someone who wishes for change to someone who builds it step by step. You stop feeling powerless because you've taken back the one thing that matters most, your ability to move forward. And here's what most people don't realize: change doesn't need to be visible right away for it to be valuable. In fact, the most powerful changes happen under the surface before anyone else can see them. The shift in your thinking, the discipline you build when no one's clapping, the courage it takes to keep going without certainty, that's where transformation happens. It's not glamorous, it's not loud, but it's real. And once it starts it spreads into every part of your life. This is the kind of message people are starving for. They've heard the motivational noise, they've seen the highlight reels. What they're really looking for is truth, something grounded, something that feels like it was made for them. And when a message speaks directly to where they are emotionally and mentally, they don't just listen, they stay. That's what the YouTube algorithm recognizes: engagement, watch time, connection. And if your video holds someone's attention because it reflects their struggle and gives them a path forward, it doesn't just perform, it makes an impact. That's what brings viewers back. That's what makes a message go beyond numbers, because people remember how something made them feel. They remember what made them believe again. So when you tell someone that progress changes lives, you're not giving empty advice, you're giving them a way out of the pressure they've been carrying. You're handing them back control. You're saying you don't need to be perfect to build something powerful, you just need to keep going. And that gives people hope without pretending that things are easy. It respects where they are but refuses to let them stay there. That kind of respect, it motivates, it lifts, it challenges, and it gets people moving again. Now you might be wondering, how do I know if I'm actually making progress? The answer is simple: you know you're making progress when you no longer run from discomfort, when you feel discomfort and lean in instead of checking out, when you keep your promises to yourself even when they're small, when you do the thing you said you do, not because someone is watching but because you said you would. That's real progress, and it adds up faster than you think. You may not feel it every day. Some days you'll still feel like nothing's changing, but when you zoom out, when you look back at who you were 6 months ago, a year ago, you'll see it. You'll see the results of every small decision you made to keep moving. That's how lives change, not in one big moment but in 1,000 quiet ones that no one else saw but you saw them. And that's enough. When you live with this mindset, you stop comparing yourself to others, you stop measuring yourself by someone else's speed, you start measuring yourself by your own integrity. Are you doing what you said you would? Are you becoming someone you respect? That's what matters. That's what builds a life you're proud of, not perfection, not applause, progress. Consistent, meaningful progress that moves you closer to your best. So if you're still sitting there doubting whether your small steps matter, let me be clear, they do. Every single one, every decision to stay focused, every choice to resist distraction, every moment you act when it's easier to do nothing, that's what builds the future you've been dreaming about. It's not about being extraordinary, it's about being consistent. And if you can do that even on the days when motivation is low and energy is thin, you're already winning. You're not here to be perfect, you're here to grow, and progress is what makes that possible. It always has, it always will. So keep going, keep building, keep choosing what matters, because your life doesn't change when things are perfect. It changes the moment you decide that progress is enough, and it is, it always has been.